Organizational planning for 2020. That's going to be our topic today on the Journey to CEO show. We're going to be talking about what's different about planning. A lot of people are saying, hey, planning, just throw it out. Let's forget about that because everything's changed so much. I don't think that that's the right answer. We also know that a lot of the plans we started with in 2020 are out the window. The plans we may have written in 2019, the plans we may have made a few years prior that we're executing on may have radically changed. So we need to figure out how to balance those two things. There's still a place for planning, and planning is very important. Those of you who follow my work know that I am very passionate about business planning, and business planning is still an absolute necessity. But the way we do it has changed. The way we think about planning has changed, particularly in light of this environment. So I'm honored that Dr. Gatty is joining me again today for another episode of Journey to CEO. We'll be jumping into organizational planning for 2020. And so let's start, Dr. Ann, with just the obvious thing, which is there are a lot of people who maybe wrote business plans or at least had business plans in their head for what they were going to accomplish in 2020. And for a lot of people, that's out the window. So what do? Do they just give up on planning? Do they forget about it? Or what do you think?
Okay, well, obviously 2020 is a different year than we were anticipating as far as the business environment by a long shot. So I think what I am telling clients is to just look at the next few months to the end of the year and just see how you can work through till the end of the year and plan just getting whatever revenue you can and working with your employees as best you can, and using this as a time to check all of your business functions, whether it's your sales system, your marketing system, and your financial monitoring, product development, even your purpose. What are we going to be when we go forward? What are we trying to accomplish? How are we trying to take care of our community and our clients and our employees? So this is a time for reassessment more than anything, I think. Obviously, you're trying to get through and make certain that you're writing in black ink rather than red ink on your financials. But at the same time, you really do need to check what is different, what systems are working now before you start to plan out for 21 next year. You really do need to say, because sales systems are not the same. What worked before is not going to work in this new environment.
And let's give our audience a sense of accomplishment here. We got one of our guests here tuning in saying, they've accomplished more in 2020 than they had planned, right? Simply think positive and move forward. And I think there is some element of that. Part of that's the industry, and so tells us that she's in the online industry, right? So get online. Well, I think that that's true, right? But not everybody had that. Well, people saw that there was a trend that direction.
Right.
If you're running a bar or a restaurant, it's hard to say just go online because, it's hard to move a bar.
No, but I do think that what you can do is look at your revenue streams, and maybe Silk found where her revenue stream is, and then you exploit that revenue stream as best you can. Those who were online may have had a little bit easier time just expanding their presence online, but there are a lot of companies now that have figured ways to be online or to use technology and social media, whether you're ordering food at a restaurant or what have you, using that technology to have delivery services and pickup services for foods. So it really means that you've got to take a strong look and say, what is our role? What are we trying to accomplish in our business? And then say, okay, how are we going to get there? You're going to have to do some reverse engineering here before you plan for 2021, because what, again, you said you did before may not work.
And I don't want to discount the in-person, right? Because at some point, we're hearing very good news out of Sweden, for instance, that their numbers are starting to get controlled, and they kind of did the herd immunity thing. They just let everybody get sick, and now the numbers are getting good. Here in the U.S., the Florida numbers have improved significantly. So, we don't know when it is. We don't know if it's 2021. We don't know if it's 2022. But at some point, people are going to go back to doing things in person too, right? So you need to balance the online in person. I expect some of the physical venues are probably going to do very well because of, people they haven't been to a concert in 2 years, so they're
Right.
ready to go, right? They're going to be bidding up the price of concert tickets for a while, and they're going to be.
Well, I think aren't we social human beings? We're
Yes.
social beings, and so we do miss that contact with one another. This social isolation is really very detrimental. So somehow we need to reconnect and find ways to do that. And like you say, that in-person experience will be really very, very much something that people yearn for as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think so. There's an element of that, right? We need to figure out how to balance it. And certainly looking at my client base, my legal clients, the ones that are online are the ones that have been killing it this year, right? They've had, some of that real growth. And I mean, their businesses are actually bigger now than they were before this thing started. And then we see, some of the big winners nationally, right? And some of it was physical, right? So Amazon's a big winner, obviously, because they're dropping boxes off to people's houses. But, Walmart was a big winner because Walmart, I guess they kind of got lucky. They had most of their stores had food in them plus retail. And, one of my friends is a Walmart manager, and he said, hey, look, people are coming in and buying their food, and they're picking up a TV and they're picking up a book while they're in here. So, Walmart had some banner sales because they just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So there was a kind of a randomness to this year with the results, right? So everybody came in with their plan, as we should do, and we should think what we think 2020 is going to be. I don't think anybody that built into their plan the idea of a significant physical shutdown, right? Nobody was planning for that.
But you know what? I do
ahead.
Think, Phil, I do think, Shawn, that we'll feel better once we get sort of a new rhythm going forward, in that sometimes we'll plan out the year. I've seen people that will plan out the year and then they sort of work their plan through the year and see how they're doing. At this point, you may have an overarching goal and some overarching plans that you want to accomplish during that year, but you are really going to have to break things down into quarters and do some after action reviews in those quarters. And I was talking to a gentleman who specializes in sales training, and he said that really you've got to make certain you've got your systems in place and be able to check on those and monitor those. Some of the companies I worked with were monitoring every week what their revenue was against their expenses just to get through this COVID. So they're learning more to inject the monitoring part into the planning so that the plan becomes more fluid. It's easier to pivot. It's easier to modify if things are going askew and you're not back on the trajectory you want. So I do think that really it's going to be more like cycles through the year, that you start something, you check, you start, you check, and move yourself through the year that way.
Well, yeah, and I think the big companies are good about that, right? So I mean, when we work with the sales teams in the big companies, when I talk to sales leaders in companies or division leaders, they are, big companies monitor every week, right? How are sales going?
Right.
How did this salesperson do? How did that salesperson do? And they're constantly building reporting and monitoring. And we think of big companies doing that. Us running, smaller operations don't usually put as much rigor into it. But I think 2020 is teaching us that we need to then monitor our plans better, right? It's great to make a plan.
Right.
The companies that seem to be doing well are the ones that have gone back and said, okay, well, we're not selling, door to door. We're not selling in our lobby of our restaurant. What are we going to do? And I think, you know of at least one restaurant that said, hey, we're moving online and we're going to go strong this direction. We can actually increase our sales.
Right.
So you can view it as, woe is me, everything's over, or you can view it as, hey, here's an opportunity. Let's adjust what we need to do.
Well, and I think that it takes discipline. If you do not have someone on your staff that is currently monitoring every week, which a lot of the small businesses do not have that financial CFO, then you're going to have to find some ways that you can still monitor and establish metrics and be able to see that if you need to make, let's say you need to make 8 sales per month, And that because you're selling large items or whatever, or you're selling large services, packaged services. How many is it going to take that you need to get in front of? How many calls are you going to have to make? How many calls are you going to have to make, and back that out? And it may be that you have to make, 56 calls to get those 8 sales. So it's important that you set up your funnels, and the way you contact people may be different. You may not do it face to face right now. You may be doing it on the phone. You may be doing it through video conferencing. So you have to find the ways that are going to bring you in the revenue you need, and which revenue stream works best. So that's why I say you have to, at this point, really look at all of the functions of the business and make certain that they are still appropriate and working, and that you're be training or bringing in people that can, if you can't do it with who you have, who can help you get that done.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the sales numbers, the funnels, right? I mean, those concepts still apply.
Right.
You might be having in 2020 that some of your historical numbers may not work the same, right? It may be, instead of calling 50 people to make 8 sales, it might be call 100 people.
Right.
And that fundamentally changes the way your business and business processes work. So you may have to go back and do some reality checks.
Right.
And then, you're going to have to adjust the plan. So I think one lesson is just to say, okay, we had a plan beginning of the year. Is this plan realistic to continue for the rest of 2020? And it's okay to go back and then just write an interim plan to get you through the rest of 2020, right? If you and your team feel like the business plan you wrote in late 2019 or whatever is not working, it's okay to go in and reinvent. And this may be a period where you need to do that every couple months. Is just go in and revisit your plan and say, what changed? Are stores open? Are stores not open? Are people willing to come?
And we don't know. And so you have to have a plan that can make those modifications on. I mean, we're coming into September and then the last quarter. And I like clients to finish strong. I like businesses to think about, okay, so we missed our, rather than, okay, we missed our goals. How can we still rev up? How can we get finished strong in 2020 so that we're going into 2021 in a position of strength, rather than, we're doing some catch up, or we're trying to figure ways to regain our profits. So I really think that this is such an important time, because you have to be able to figure ways that you can pivot on a dime, if necessary, to stay in business. And this quarter, we'll see what we've got an election coming up, and we'll start to see what the landscape is going to look like for 2021. But I think flexibility in staffing is going to be something that you're going to have to really take some time and plan, because with the COVID, you have a lot of parents that are having difficulty trying to figure out how to manage both their business, their careers, and also take care of their family and their children who may or may not be in school.
Yes, you got that issue, right? With, we think a lot about regulatory risk. I want to pop up one of our viewer comments here, right? So, it's election year, and usually in election year, we're thinking about regulatory change, right? If people are like, are taxes going to go up, or taxes going to go down? What's going to happen? And now we have probably even more regulatory risks in our typical election year, because there's going to be big shifts depending on who takes office and who controls the House and Senate, right? So that we got even more of that, Matt. Plus, just the way the economy's been this year, the government has been a big player in it. And so Steve Sapato is asking, what do you do when you don't know what your county or state's going to do with lockdowns? How do you strategize, right? And then, so I'll let you take first cut of that, Dr. Ann, and I'll throw
I think that's where you have to put on your HR hat, and you have to realize that that work has to be, it can be remote in certain times and in person in certain times. And I'm literally writing job descriptions now that designate when you can be, what tasks can be done remotely, where do we need to be in person. If you're doing some brainstorming, for example, with your team, oftentimes you might find that you are going to get a more robust conversation going in person than you would remote. So it's really important to look at your HR, and it's really important that you figure ways that you can get the message out. Oh, and the other thing in this time of uncertainty, so you've got sales and you've got HR. The other part that I would say that is absolutely critical is that in this time of uncertainty, there needs to be a sense of certainty in your staffing with your employees, and that means a sense of identity. They have to know who they are and what they're going, what the purpose is, and be aligned together so that they know that there is maybe, that how are they improving the community, or what's their sense of purpose in making a positive impact on the community with their clients. So that's the other thing that I see is with uncertainty, how can you provide stability within your organization?
Yeah, and I think the other thing I would say is this is a big year for what if planning, and I run through this with a lot of my clients. We do the kind of the flow chart going forward, right? Like we're here, and we're going to go talk to the strategic investor. And if this conversation goes this way, we're going to go this direction. If the conversation goes that way, we're going to go that direction, right? We got this potential strategic partnership over here. And if we align with this customer, they're going to buy, 15 or 20% of our sales. And that's going to move our business this way. And so this is a year in particular to sit down and do the what if planning. And run those lines way in the future and say, what if the lockdown ends in October? What if the lockdown gets deeper in October? And you probably want to plan your business 2-3 different scenarios, right? So
Absolutely.
we may have regulations that allow us to reopen in October. We may have regulations that keep us about the same in October. We may have regulations that are more restrictive, right?
And that's why
your management team to run all 3 of them, right? And what's that going to mean? And how will we keep our revenues up in either of those scenarios?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. You have 3 scenarios, but that does mean that you got to monitor them and be comparing them on a regular basis. And that may be, I had one client, we were doing it twice a week. We were looking, that's how because we were worrying about staffing. Was he going to have to lay people off? What was going on? And shifting how the staff works. So it was like, okay, we had staffing that did these kinds of things, maybe event planning, maybe, financial, maybe marketing, whatever. But some of that got shifted, and we actually made some collaborative effort to work with other like organizations so that we could, at least continue to show a presence in the community and be positive in our work with the community. So we had 3 scenarios, just like you were saying, Shawn, but we were checking on them on a very regular basis so that we could say, when have we moved from scenario 1 to scenario 2? We were looking at best scenario to worst scenario. So that's what we were trying to see. And then were there other ways that we could get to the best scenario sooner?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too, right? Is, you've got to figure out those what if scenarios. What are you going to do as you move through these scenarios? How do I get to the scenario I want to be in?
Right.
And you just plan on that. And like you say, you monitor constantly what's happening. What is most likely? Which direction are we most likely getting pushed? And I think it's a fantastic year for strategic partnerships. You brought that up, and I think this is the year, right? I'm watching my clients that are doing well.
Right.
I'm looking at the advocacy work I'm doing. The more you can team up and pair up and build kind of that knowledge base, right? You have multiple people in different sectors of the economy hearing different things, different geographies, different regulatory stuff. How can you team up with other people? Now's a great time to think about that.
Absolutely, because then you're adding more value for your clients and for the community you're serving, because not only are you coming in and saying, here, I can provide this, but you know what, here's some other things, like I'll do the strategic planning, I'll do the HR and leadership development, because but maybe they do need a financial planner or somebody that's doing the monitoring and saying, hey, now that we need somebody monitoring you on a weekly basis, here's somebody that can help do that and has the answers to questions that you might not even have known to ask. So I think that strategic partnerships work very well. And I think also that as you're working with your team, don't forget that this is a really good learning experience and that you can be teaching and helping your team become better leaders. So this is a time that they might have some stretch goals, or they may have some ways in which they can improve in their professional skills. So this is a great time to take advantage of that and let them do that and become more innovative. As we've talked in the past, Shawn, innovation is critical for any business. And this is obviously a time when innovation is going to be front and center for survival.
Yes, innovation is critical for your long-term path, right? You got to have those big goals and objectives and things, and you're going to have to change and innovate to get there, right? And then now we're starting to talk about the same type of thing here, right? You have to do it even more often right now in this particular year, this particular regulatory environment. I want to remind people who are watching, you're watching the Journey to CEO show. We have a YouTube channel. I hope you'll subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. As Dr. Ann and I often go live, usually 10 a.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. Sometimes we have a guest, sometimes it's us, but I hope you mark your calendar and join us for more conversations. Because we're trying to help business owners, business leaders, advocates kick it up to the next level. So innovation becomes an important thing. And I think to the extent you haven't underscored that in your meetings, and the fact that if you haven't, locked that in with your employees and your team, go back to the drawing board, right, and get everybody thinking about innovation throughout your organization.
That's where you're looking at your systems again, and you're looking at how can we improve our sales system? How can we improve our marketing system? How can we improve the way in which we are establishing metrics and KPIs so that we are more accurate in our in just the flow in which we're doing our business, and being able to hit our goals more frequently. So, I think that COVID has provided us, whether we liked it or not, with a very destructive. Oh my gosh.
Disruptive and destructive. It's both really. Yes.
Disruptive, environment. So that we've had to rebuild.
Okay. Yeah.
So use this rebuilding time to improve.
Yeah, we got another viewer question. Folks, love your live comments. Hope you join us live and pop the comments up there. If you don't catch us live, you're catching us on replay on YouTube or wherever, just write your comments in. Literally, we'll come back. We'll try to respond to you. If not, we may do a whole show on a topic, or we might make it part of the show. So we want your questions. We want to know what's going on out there. It all gets, it's all stuff that we work through, and we like to answer specific questions. When we're not working with our clients or focus groups, we love doing these types of things to get more people in the know that there are options and opportunities, and then also, it gives us a chance to see what's going on out there. So keep asking the questions. So Steve Sapato asks us, do you think most employers are open to their people being innovative when they're reducing staffs and requiring more from each employee? And I'm going to have a strong comment on that, but I'm going to let you go first, Dr. Ann.
I think that they have no choice but to let them be innovative, because one of the ways that they're being innovative is being more productive, more efficient in their use of time. And so productivity becomes a key area when you're reducing staff, obviously. I do think it is important that as the leader, if you are reducing staff, you explain, whether it's a layoff or furlough, how right. You're doing things, so that people know it's not to take it personally. It's that you're trying to survive and bring them back. I've had that with some of my clients, but I do think that people like to grow, and they want to know that there is a way for them to grow in their business and in their career path. So, I think that innovation is not used as much as it should be, as far as allowing people their voices, that if you have a problem that you're trying to solve, get everybody's opinions, because then you have a more diverse thought pattern, and you're more likely to make a better solution.
Yep.
Choose a better solution.
Yeah, and I want to pop the question back up there, right? So the question is, are you actually being innovative when you're reducing staff and requiring more of each other employees? And I think really this is as much of a symptom as it is the problem, right? So the employers that are reducing staffs and requiring more of each employee, usually that's because they haven't been innovative, right? So they're stuck in a business model. And we all want to improve our results, right? And if you you listen to any of the management gurus, right, your profitability should be going up over time, your revenue should be going up over time, and you should be expanding your business. And for a lot of businesses, their answer is to either crank down, and we see this in the big businesses, crank down on your suppliers. You can't really do that as much in a small business, or to crank down on your employees, right? So if I can't increase my profitability by creating new products, new services, new solutions for my customers and bring in revenue that way, then the only way left to increase profitability is to lower my expenses, right? And that often comes at the expense of the employees. So I think these are opposite ends of the coins, right? If you're a good, innovative business and you're creating new revenue streams and you're adapting to the market and addressing the issue to your customers, you should be growing the top line while you should be managing the bottom half of your income statement as well, right? I mean, you don't want your expenses to get out of control, but you don't have to get crazy about, making your employees work longer hours or reducing your staff if you're growing the business the right way. So I think they're opposite ends of the coin. And I think some businesses get caught in that trap of the only way they feel they can improve their profitability is to, get more out of their staff. And I think we want a good productive staff, but that's not the path of increasing profits.
I'm hoping that with this COVID-19, one of the byproducts from that will be that companies are being more innovative and asking their staff for ways in which they can serve their clients and the community more effectively and provide more positive impact. I really do. I think that this is a wonderful time to be more inclusive. This is a more wonderful time to diversify your employee staff so that you have diversity of thought. You've got people coming in with different experiences that can then share those experiences and provide for that really healthy, innovative thinking that needs to happen. I think that if you don't take advantage of this time to try and do things differently, then you're really missing out on a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, and part of this is just philosophical, right? Are your employees cogs in a wheel to, get boxes taped up and out the door, or, to deliver the food to the table? Are you viewing your employees as somebody who completes a process in your business, or are you viewing your employees as centers of innovation, right? And we hear the stories that, if you have the right philosophy and you open the doors, a lot of times your line level employees will come up with great innovations, right? Like, why are we doing it that way? It would be more efficient if we did it this way. But too many businesses, particularly businesses that are caught up in the old way of thinking, are just like, do your job. I don't want to hear from you. You got to change the culture top to bottom.
80% of innovation is coming from your front line.
Yeah, they're the ones that know what's happening, right?
They're the ones that know what's happening. And if you're really smart, if the leader is smart here as they're developing plans and they're thinking about 2021, then figure out a way that it becomes a habit for people with their ideas to be able to bring it up the chain. It's not going to happen in the C-suite. So if you're on the front line and you're, working with a manufacturer, and so you're in the service department and you're providing parts, and people are coming in and buying parts from your service center. So you may be talking and saying, here's a better way to inventory this, or here's a better way to explain these parts and get these parts effectively to the front desk where they're being sold. You may talk to all of your colleagues in that department and say, here's a better way, and then send that up to the next, to the manager, and then set a pattern, another system by which creativity can go on up the line and be implemented. And I just think that, it needs to be a part of the fabric. to use those creative ideas.
I don't know how many times I've talked to an employee about a business and I'm like, well, this is not working well, or this isn't efficient, or I don't like the way this works. And they're just like, yeah, there's nothing we can do to change it. Right. I mean, they kind of have this helplessness, and if your customers are giving feedback to your employees, or your employees are seeing things, you got to give them channels to communicate those things so that you can improve the business. Employees should be innovation centers. So employees should be helping you grow the top line of your business over time. So you got to change that philosophy, especially in an environment like we are in now, because they're the ones that are going to give you the ideas that help you open up new possibilities.
Well, and they're going to stay around. Employee retention, better employee retention. Which is a huge area going to be with the talent pool that is shrinking. And even if you're, I have a company that had to lay off some people, but those people are coming back in October. And so they'll be back, because we've taken care of them. We figured a way to take care of them during this time.
The two play together very well, right? Taking care of your people, getting innovation, and a lot of times the innovation is going to take away the frustration of the employee, right? Because they're going to say something like, I don't like how this works, or the customers get mad at me because this takes too long, and then we can make it shorter by doing this. Like, a lot of times those very innovations that are going to increase your profitability and make your business better are also going to make your employees happier, because it's going to take away frustrations and angst in the business, right? Because no employee wants to come in and get yelled at every day because the business process isn't working well.
If they're able to have some input, because they've come up with some creative ideas, and those ideas are implemented into the business plan, there's ownership, and they're going to, again, be much better at working with your company. They're going to be more productive. They're going to be a better advocate, ambassador for your company. There was one woman that I think it was at Honda plant, where all she did, her job was to put on the windshield wipers. But she had, in the company, more creative ideas than anybody else each year. She was able to come up with more, and they were tracking that. They were tracking how many of these ideas were put into place and became woven into their planning and modeling for the company. So I think that it just depends on the leader. And we talk about this too, Shawn. If you're an entrepreneur building a business, you're the leader, business owner, you've got to be willing to share the leadership, the direction, the planning. It can't always just be you.
Yeah, and you're alluding to our book, Entrepreneur to CEO, which
that's my job, isn't it?
Yes, we are. We have a book called Entrepreneur CEO. Dr. Ann and I will be releasing it. I hope you're following that in our Facebook group, Journey to CEO, on our YouTube channel, Journey to CEO, because we're bringing a lot of innovative ideas of breaking down how people grow from being just somebody who owns a business to really being a true CEO who can run enterprise, and what that steps look like. So I hope you're following us on that. I hope you're contributing and giving us thoughts here. We'd love to be connected with you. And of course, Dr. Ann and I work directly with companies too. So if you want to be part of a focus group or a team, reach out to us directly. We can help get you placed into the right thing that can help you kind of unlock some of these things with your teams. Mark your calendars, 10 a.m. Eastern, Wednesdays. We're often live on there. If not, just watch a replay on the Journey to CEO channel. But make sure you're subscribed and ring the bell for our YouTube channel so you can join us on future Wednesdays. And we'll be back with you again soon. Looking forward to chatting with you. Drop us some comments, folks.